Okay, today I kind of want to go over a little something that I had to deal with, and then I'm going to give some of what I believe may have been the consequences of the problem. This entails a 7.3 liter turbo Power Stroke 1997 F250. Of course, that's not typically the way that you describe a vehicle. You usually go by the model first and then go on down the line. But anyhow, you get the point. Okay, it is a diesel, so it has two batteries. They're 12-volt batteries. I try to get at least 800 850 cranking amps on them because in the wintertime you need all you can get. But we've had all kinds of problems with cranking this thing and over the years, and for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. And we've been having trouble with the transmission. The transmission was not shifting correctly. Then it would do wonderful. Then it wouldn't shift correctly. And it was getting to where just about every time I had to crank this thing, if it was set up for 2 or 3 days, I was having to clean the cables, take the cables off, clean the cables, and it was getting to be a hassle. And let me show you the setup that the cables the cables represented. And by the way, this is why you're sitting here looking at the bed of our 2010 F-150, because I have it laid out here on the tailgate. Now, this right here is the cable that connects the two batteries in parallel. Okay, this is your positive cable. You notice it's kind of beat up over the years, but as you can see, it's machined in there. Okay, that goes to the auxiliary battery. This comes down to the main battery. Okay, and this would hook up to the main battery with a screw through the clamp that would normally hold the main cable down. Now you notice the size of these cables. They're huge, and they have to be. So this, as you can see, you can see the corrosion on the end of it right now, was the cable that came from the starter to the battery. Okay, look up in here. Do you see that corrosion? That corrosion goes all the way up into the wire. This one also hooked. See, all three of these hooked together to that positive post on the battery on this side. This one went to the solenoid, okay, over on the frame. This was a negative cable, but I went ahead and replaced it too, because somebody had to put a screw in there to hold it in place because it was so messed up. The cable, the post was not getting a good contact all the way around, and you can't really see it in here because I'd cleaned it up once, trying to just get the thing cranked up enough to take it to the carport to get it to crank. But part of this around here had rust in it on the inside because it wasn't making good contact. Now, pulling this cable out was a bear, because this one right here, I replaced it with the cable that actually goes on, and I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. But this right here, it goes all the way down, and then it starts going between the cross member and the oil pan. Okay, and it has that lovely little a curved protector there, I guess. And then it goes all the way around and hooks to the starter. Okay, that's where that would be the end hooks of the starter. Now it has this covering all the way up it. That covering was put together with cloth electrical tape, and you didn't know where it was. I had to cut it all the way down, and there was like 2 or 3 places right here, but all of this was behind the cross member, right here. Now, the only thing I can think that they did is that they must have run the wiring and everything before they stabbed the engine, because nobody in their right mind would work around that cross member to put all that stuff in there by feel. So so they must have run the wiring for the battery before they actually stabbed the engine in the truck. This right here, you see the end is cut. Well, the end's cut for a reason. I replaced that one, and I wanted to hook it up where it was hooked up to the engine. Well, guess what? Ford runs it all the way down up under the front of the engine and hooks it up behind a bracket that's held on with a screw with a post that comes out of the engine and has a nut on it. I took the nut. I finally got the nut off, because you have to do one of those yoga things in order to get the nut off. And finally got the nut off. And when I tried to get the bracket to come off, it wouldn't come off. It must be attached somewhere else. So I just went ahead and attached the new one to the front of that bracket, and tightened it down real snug with the nut, and cut the other one off. I just cut it loose with a pair of wire cutters, and you can see how big these wires are. I mean, that would really be tempting to some white trash thief around here. But anyhow, so then I put the new one on. Okay, this is the new one. The new one connects over here. This is the new positive cable. Hopefully I can get it in here without getting too much glare on it. This is the new positive cable. It connects right here. I put the guards on it for the corrosion. It goes all the way through here. I had to take a rubber mallet to knock it in here. It comes with its own covering, which is good. Comes all the way around here. And as you can see, all those wires are machined into the clamp right here. And that is beautiful. That's absolutely fantastic. Here's the new negative cable that I put on. And it runs all the way down in there, like I told you, where it hooks up. This small wire right here, that one goes around and it hooks to the solenoid right here, and it's on the fender well. Well, actually kind of above the fender well, but anyhow, on the fender. You have to take the reserve tank for the coolant off in order to get the old one out and put the new one in, and don't rig it. You know, run it like it was run before. Otherwise, you're going to end up with problems, I would think, in the future. Because boy, do you have a lot of moving parts in this area. So anyhow, we will see how it does. And one of the things that I wanted to test on it was if the transmission, oh hello Ben, if the transmission, he has to be on the chain today. He decided to run off and grab a skunk the other day, and it was not a pleasant experience for either one of us. The transmission in that 97 F250, like I said, was having trouble shifting. We were ready to do a overhaul on the transmission, but we did one about 4 years ago, and we haven't put near enough miles on it for it to have a problem. The one we did years ago was had to be done. The transmission had burned up, and so I thought, well, you know, this transmission depends on electrical signal on electricity in order to work. If you don't believe me, yank the the fuse out that goes to your dome light, and it will not. The transmission will go crazy. Yes, they run the transmission through the fuse that goes to the dome light. Thank you, Ford. Found that out the hard way. But anyhow, I decided, you know, if this thing isn't making good contact, you know, it can be running just fine because the diesels don't have to have a spark. You know, they don't have to have a spark being made in order to run, and it could be running just fine. And then other things could be running fine, but that transmission may not be getting the juice that it needs. So I wanted to see if changing these cables out would help out before we sunk, you know, $1,500 to $2,000 into another transmission overhaul. And I'm going to see. So far, it's doing good. It's shifting like a dream right now. And so I'll see if it starts acting up again. If it does, well, that's going to do away with that theory. But anyhow. So there it is. I just want to kind of go over all of that in case anybody out there has a F250 they want to change that those wiring out on the wiring out on. Now out on, two prepositions, so that ain't good. So one of the real tests that's going to be on this thing is going to go through is when it gets cold, because I tell you, cold will drag them down big time. And we don't get that cold down here, and we don't get cold enough to where it really should be dragging it down as bad as it does, but it always seems to every winter. So I'm going to see if this helps out. I think it will. I just want to get in, turn the key on, and the thing to crank. So anyhow, y'all have a good one.